Baruchim haba, and welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha and Parshas Beha'aloscha, Chasam Sofer and Parshas Beha'aloscha. I'm very excited to share with you an amazing approach of the Chasam Sofer to the mitzvah of the menorah, as well as an understanding of the man, which will give us a chizuk in an important area of Avodas Hashem, namely Shmiras Ha'inayim. The pasuk says, "Al mul pnei hamenorah ya'iru shivas hanerois." Al mul pnei hamenorah. Rashi learns that means all the Nerois, the six exterior Nerois, were supposed to be tilted toward the Ner Emsa'i. Rashi says, Rashe Pesilois Kulan Poinim, the tops of the wicks were all turned, Letzad Emsa'i, to the middle wick, Kedei Shelo Yomer L'Oirut Tzarch, so that people shouldn't say that the light was needed. So in other words, this was to minimize the light, so that it should not be said that the light was needed. Similarly, the Gemara in Shabbos says, "V'chila ayrohu tzarich." Did God need light? V'haloi kol arba mishana shebemidbar. We walked by the light of God. Chasam Sofer in Torah's Moshe tries to explain what's the issue with increasing the light in the mikdash. Why was the light supposed to be minimized? Says the Chasam Sofer, if a person wants to have a perception of what is taking place in the shamayim, in the spiritual world, then one can do so by directing his thoughts to the shamayim, but in order to do so, one has to close their physical eyes. You know, sometimes a person thinks and learning and wants to be amel, and somehow they instinctively close their eyes. Says Chasam Sofer, to have an understanding and perception of what's taking place in the spiritual realms, one has to have their eyes closed. Says Chasam Sofer, every person has in their mayach einei ruchnias, spiritual eyes, with which one can perceive kedusha. However, what interferes with one's perception of kedusha? The physical eyes interfere with one's perception of kedusha. Like my Rebbe, the Hafla, the Chasam Sofer says on the pasuk, "Vatipakachna einei shneim," when their eyes were open, v'yedu kihem arumim, they understood that they were not clothed. The Hafla introduces an amazing idea, an amazing concept, that a person has two sets of eyes and they work conversely. The more one closes their physical eyes to the allures of this world, the more their spiritual eyes are open wide to perceive Hashem's hand in the world, to perceive spirituality. The Chasam Sofer says, I've already spoken about this on the pasuk Kachashecha Ka'ira. The more one blocks out their physical re'iyah, their einei gashmias, hu moisif re'iyah be'einei ruchnias. Says the Chasam Sofer, the impediment to spiritual recognition is one's physical vision. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands Aaron. Aaron is the one who illuminates for the Jewish people through his avodah, through his tefillah, that when he lights the nerois, he should minimize the light, minimize the physical seeing in order to maximize spiritual perception. The Hafla, amazingly, uses this idea to explain the Gemara Masech Nida, that the Gemara says that when a child is b'mei ima, he's able to see misoif ha'olam v'yad soifai. See misoif ha'olam v'yad soifai. But his eyes are closed. Exactly. Because his physical eyes are closed, that's why his spiritual eyes can perceive the entire universe. The moment he's born, and his physical eyes are open, the perception stops. Says the Chasam Sofer in the next paragraph, with this we can understand how the man was a preparation for Kabbalas HaTorah. You see, the man had no physical appearance. It was ke'ena b'doilach. It was clear. It had no physical re'iyah. It did not give enjoyment. It did not allow one to indulge his sense of physical sight. Therefore, it promoted and it magnified the einei haseichel, and that's why lo nitna Torah ela l'ochlei aman, that through an achila that was completely removed from physical re'iyah, it opened up the einei haseichel and it helped Klal Yisrael lahavin or lahaskel. So this is an amazing understanding and presentation of this phenomenon that we're unaware of. that we have a set of spiritual eyes. And when one is presented then with a challenge in Shmir Seinayim, one could think that Hashem is giving you an opportunity. He wants you to see Him more, recognize Him more, understand the Torah better. And by blotting out the physical vision, it allows the spiritual vision to soar. May we all be Zoicha to see May Soif HaOlam V'yad Soifa. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos.